All right, sugar babies, let's go. All right, guys, today's date is January 18th, 2022. And you guys are about to learn how to solve quadratic equations by using square roots. Go ahead and commit this objective to your notes, please. Y'all ready? All right, let's go. Oh, y'all need calculators. Come on in, child. This is not for the lesson. I'll throw that away from you, please. Take the calculator for you. There you go. You all right back here, just corner by yourself, you okay? All right, I feel like you're so far away from me. All right. All right, y'all, let's go. All right, young people, so we're going to be solving quadratics using square roots. Young people, the only time that you can use this method is when you have a quadratic that looks like this. Typically, it's essentially a squared plus c equals 0. But of course, it can vary because you can have a number on the other side and so on and so forth. So look at these examples that I've developed for you. So if you have a situation like x squared plus 25 equals 0, or x squared minus 25 equals 0, or x squared minus 28, the main thing you need to realize is that that middle term, the x term is missing. All right, you got the x squared term, you got the constant term, but that x term, the bx term, is missing. All right, you got 3x squared equals 15. Now, the only exception to that is when you have a quadratic that it's in vertex form. Okay, when it's in vertex form. The last one is in vertex form because you have the factored version of the quadratic, all right? And it's raised to the second power. It's squared. The square has been completed, all right? And it's set equal to a certain quantity. You can use the square root method in this instance as well. And I'm going to go through each of these variations today. All right. Any questions or concerns? All right, but typically that middle term, notice for the first three, you don't see an x term, do you? You see x squared, you see the constant, but you don't see just a straight up x term. All right. So let's make it real. Oh, and as we go through each of the examples, if you see a plus sign on top of a minus sign, we've already talked about this when we encountered the quadratic formula, but it's read plus or minus. All right. All right. All right. So the square root property is what we'll be using today, young people. And the text states that to solve a quadratic equation in the form of x squared equals a, okay, is a general form, take the square root of both sides, because we got to solve for x. So look at the example in numbers. So you have x squared is equal to 15. Well, how will I solve this? Well, when you solve, you're solving for x. You're getting x by itself. Well, how do I get rid of a squared on x squared? To undo square, you must square root. They're opposite operations of each other, okay? So you take the square root of both sides, as you can see, and you end up with this. Let me just work it out, because I know you all can see it, but you don't exactly know what has happened or what is happening. So you start off with this equation, x squared equals 15. You're like, okay, I got to solve for x. How do I get this x by itself? I got to get rid of this squared, okay? The opposite of square, as I've stated before, is square root, but I can't take the square root of one side. I must take the square root of both sides, right? That's so ugly, but that's okay. Now, the thing about this is this. Yeah, the square root of x squared is x, but over on the other side, the square root of 15, okay, I must consider both the positive and negative aspect of the square root of 15. Now, what is she talking about? Let me do a better example. Say we had x squared equals 9, and you've been asked to solve for x. Same process, right? We're going to take the square roots of both sides, right? Well, the square root of x squared is x, okay? But the square root of 9 is not just 3, y'all. Because really what you're asking yourself when you're taking the square root of 9 is this. What number can I take and multiply it by itself and get back a positive 9? Well, we all know that that answer is 3, right? But it's also negative 3. Okay? 3 times 3 equals 9. But negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9, yeah? Hello? Which is why you must acknowledge both the positive and negative aspect of the value 3, or the square root of 9. Does that make sense? A little addition. I know we've been taking square roots all this time, and I ain't say nothing about no plus or minus, have I? I haven't. But here we are. Okay? May I proceed? How are we feeling? Is this making sense to you? Anybody object to me moving on? All right. So look at this example. This is just like what we just did, right? So I have x squared equals 96. How do I solve for x? What do I do? I hope you're writing this down. Please. Ma'am. You know I can see everything. You okay? You all right? So I'm solving for x. I'm just going to rewrite it straight up in my hand. So we have x squared equals 96. How do I solve it? Well, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay? So I have that x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 96. I'm done. You already know you're not done, right? Now, typically I would say, okay, we would take the square root of 96. We'll take the radicand 96, and then we would break it down to find the biggest square root factor. Y'all pick up your calculator and type in the square root of 96 and let the calculator do the heavy lifting for you, right? Now we could, I could make me a little chart, right? Go old school. In the event you don't have a calculator, this is what you would have to do, right? You have to say, okay, what is the biggest square root factor inside of, biggest perfect square factor inside of 96? What did your calculator say? 4 root 6. All right, so that means 16 is the biggest factor. All right, perfect square factor. I'm going to keep going. What's 96 divided by 2? I'm just going to do it by hand just in case you don't have a calculator. Help me out, y'all. 96 divided by 2? 48. 48, thank you, baby. All right, I'm going to stop when I get to a perfect square. All right, moving on. 3 goes in here how many times? 32? Is it 32? Okay. Haven't hit a perfect square yet. Now I have 4 times what? 4 times 24 is a perfect square, but it's very small. I'm going to keep going. 5, no. What about 6? I bet it's 6 times 16, isn't it? Help me out. What's 96 divided by 6? 16. Boom. There's my the biggest perfect square factor I can get, right? In this situation. Now, mind you, your calculator has already told us that the answer is 4 root 6, but I'm just showing you, reminding you of how to get to the answer if you don't have a calculator, okay? So the square root of 96 can be rewritten as 6 times 16. The square root of 16 is 4, right? So your answer is going to be plus or minus 4 root 6. How it feel? Making sense? Cool. Very cut and dry example, all right? Now, will it get more intricate? You bet your bottom dollar it will. But y'all can handle it. Can I go? Danielle, are you taking notes? Okay. All right. So sometimes you'll have a negative value. Process is still the same. Take the square root of both sides, right? Go ahead and write it down. I'll wait for you. Process is still the same. Take the square root of both sides. All right. And so I get that x is equal to, now remember, when you take the square root of a negative value, you automatically pull out that I, right? So this would be plus or minus I times the square root of positive 16. Well, 16 is perfect, right? So the square root of 16 is what? I said the square root of 16 is what? 4. So this is going to be plus or minus 4i. Bam, done. May I proceed? Okay. Look at this situation. Young people, what do I do? What do I do? All of the problems we've had has had, all of the problems that I've given you up until this point has had x squared by itself on one side and then numbers on the other side, right? So what do you think I should do on the left-hand side of my equation? It says x squared plus 7 equals 7. Go ahead and write it down. X squared plus 7 equals 7. Do I take the square root of both sides just like this? What should I do? Yeah. Subtract 7 from both sides. I want to get x squared by itself. Okay? I want to isolate x squared. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides like so. And I get that x squared equals 0 in this case. 7 minus 7 is 0. But guess what? The process is still the same. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay? And I get that x is equal to plus or minus 0. That's ridiculous because there's no such thing as plus or minus 0, is it? Okay, so the answer will simply just be x equals 0. In this case, there will only be one answer. Make sense? How we feeling? Y'all all right? Okay. Let's go. Ooh, look at this one. Same thing, y'all. Same situation, except to have a fractional component here. Watch this. First thing I'm going to do is add 49 to both sides, right? Wait, let me give y'all a second to write it down. I'll wait. Y'all got it? All right. So the first thing you need to do is add 49 to both sides. And now I have 16x squared is equal to 49. Okay, great. Now, still, x squared has to be by itself, y'all, okay? I'm going to divide both sides by 16. And so now I have x squared equals 49 over 16. Oh, Lord, we have a fraction. So what? Now I'm going to take the square root. I'm going to rewrite it here. X squared equals 49 over 16. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. Okay? So that's going to be x equals plus or minus root 49 over 16. Okay? Well, young people, if you think back, you all may have learned about these rules either in pre-algebra or algebra 1 back in middle school, 8th grade. When you have a quotient as your radicand, you can splice the square root symbol, okay, and rewrite it like so. So this would be plus or minus the square root of 49 over the square root of 16, okay? And we all know that the square root of 49 is what? I said the square root of 49 is what? 7, yeah. So it's going to be 7 over what? Square root of 16, what's that? Plus or minus 7 over 4. I did a lot of writing because I just want you to have a certain level of understanding, but you're not required to write all of that. No, no, no. You could have gone here and just said, okay, the square root of 49 is 7, the square root of 16 is 4, and just jump straight to the answer. I still want you guys to understand the rules about square root symbols, okay? All right. May I proceed? All right. Same situation. Gonna subtract 49 from both sides. Let me give you a moment. I always jump straight into it, don't I? Go ahead and write it down, guys. Okay. So first step, subtract 49 from both sides because I can't solve for x until I get all the stuff off of it, right? Subtracting 49 from both sides, I get 100x squared is equal to negative 49. Okay. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 100. Ugh, I feel compelled to rewrite this. So that you all can see the linear steps, the progression. Okay, that cancels out. So we end up with x squared being equal to negative 49 over 100. Okay, now what do? It's old hat at this point, yeah? I'm going to rewrite x squared equals negative 49. You don't have to do it this way. I just want to, for anyone watching the video, or if there is, if I'm printing out annotations for someone who's absent, I want you all to see how we got where we are, okay? Take the square root of both sides, and I get that x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 49 over 100. Now, there's a negative symbol underneath the radical. What's the first thing I need to pull out? When you have a negative symbol under the radical, First thing I need to pull out, do I need to go back to the previous slides? Y'all have it in your notes. The I. Yeah, pull out the I. So I have x equals plus or minus I times the square root of 49 over 100. Okay, cool. Y'all know that the square root of 49 is what? And if you don't know, you have a calculator in front of you. 7. And the square root of 100 is what? 10. So this is going to be x equals plus or minus 7 over 10 I. And that's it. And remember, we have, of course, spliced our radical accordingly. I just kind of skipped over that step. Okay. Questions or concerns? How we feeling? Mike, are you still with me? All right. May I proceed? Yes. Okay, no problem. You good? All right. Look at that one. Ooh. I said, ooh. This is like the last example that I showed you on that first slide, right? Okay. So when you encounter a problem where you know it's set in essentially vertex format, the only thing you want on one side of the equal sign, you guys, is this portion right here, the part that's inside of the parentheses. Okay, it's the only part you want. So the 2 has got to go somewhere. Get away 2. Okay, how am I going to move the 2? Well, that literally says 2 times the quantity of x minus 5 squared, right? 2 times. How do you undo multiplication? So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And by doing so, I now have the quantity of x minus 5 squared is equal to 8. Okay? If you don't put that phone up and write this down, my God, put the phone in your bag. Or you want me to put it in my purse? I think you want me to put it in my purse. How we feeling? Okay? So now, once you have it in this format, you young people, watch this. Boom. Anytime you want to get rid of a squared symbol, young people, square root it. Okay? Taking the square root of both sides, right? Now, the square root of the quantity of x minus 5 squared is very simply going to be x minus 5. The square root symbol dissolves the squared symbol, okay? Right? Everybody all right? Okay, all right. And then is equal to plus or minus whatever the square root of 8 is. I don't know. Pick up your calculator and tell me. What's the square root of 8? Should be 2 root 2, actually. It's 2 root 2? All right, Daniela is not playing with y'all today. So I have x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus 2 root 2. Now, this is where that plus or minus comes into play, y'all. Okay? All right? Because I still got to solve for x, right? You see that minus 5? Okay? How am I going to get rid of the minus 5? Did you say, which say that louder, baby? Yeah, I got to add it. Thank you, sugar. Ashley said you got to add it. Ashley, right? Okay. Now, this is where it comes into play. Okay, watch very carefully. Now I'm going to have x equals 5 plus or minus 2 root 2. I just slid it right in front of it. Because the plus or minus really means add or subtract, right? Either I'm going to take that 5 and add 2 root 2 to it, or I'm going to take that 5 and subtract 2 root 2 from it. Does that make sense? It's a little weird, I know. Okay? Some of you all may feel better doing it this way. Let me write it in a different color. Some of you all, okay, so you have the x minus 5 equals plus or minus 2 root 2. So when you add 5 to both sides, some of you all may feel more comfortable saying x is equal to positive or negative 2 root 2 plus 5, where you're saying either I have 2 root 2 plus 5, or negative 2 root 2 plus 5. It's the same thing. Okay? Raise your hand if you like the blue side. Raise your hand if you like the green side. Okay, be like that. All right. I didn't know. It's all right. May I proceed? So at this point, young people, depending on how the answer is structured, they may want you to literally write out 5 plus, let me change back. 5 plus 2 root 2, comma, 5 minus 2 root 2, because these are two separate quantities, okay? They just, you know, condense the answer because you're either adding 2 root 2 to 5 or you're subtracting 2 root 2 from 5, okay? Is that clear? All right. And naturally, if they want a decimal approximation, you pick up your calculator and just type it in. All right? Questions or concerns? All right, let's go. Next problem. Look at this one. This is super easy. This is just like what we've been doing the whole doggone time. Y'all, get the x squared by itself, right? What's the first thing I need to move? Look up there with your eyeballs. What's the first thing I need to move? Subtract 90. Go ahead and write the problem down. I just want you to think. Okay? You can be halfway solving a problem before you even write it down if you take a good look at it first, you know? Everybody got it down? So I'm going to subtract 90, like Trevor told me. So I have negative 3x squared is equal to negative 90. Now, what do you think I should do? Thank you. Divide by negative 3 on both sides, yeah. We're essentially in middle school up until this point, and negative 90 divided by negative 3 is going to give me a positive 30, right? Yeah. And then what do I do? Boom. And I don't think there's a perfect square factor inside of the square root of 30. So x is simply going to be equal to plus or minus or positive or negative square root 30. Or if they want a decimal approximation, boom, decimal approximation. How we feel? Can I go to the next one? This is too easy. Young people, when they have your problem structured where your x squared term is negative, all right? You know you got to get x squared by itself, right? Now I could easily move the 90, and then I'd have negative 90 divided by, negative 90 is equal to negative x squared. But if I decided to add x squared to both sides, I keep everything cute and positive. You feel what I'm saying? And I end up with positive x squared equals positive 90. Now, let me rewrite it. If you decided, it would be of no consequence if you decided to subtract 90 from both sides. Wouldn't matter. You just have an additional step. So you'd have negative 90 equals negative x squared. Then you'd have to divide both sides by negative 1. And you'd still end up with 90 equal to positive x squared. Things will just be symmetrically opposed. Okay? It'll just be flipped around by way of the symmetric property. Does that make sense? Okay? Questions or concerns? Now what's my next step, y'all? What do I do? Go ahead and finish it on your paper. Hello. Are you Jordan? Welcome, child. You new to the school? Oh, welcome. What are you thinking? Is it a lot more than come on, we're almost at the end of the lesson, but I want to get you acclimated in just 1 second. Let me see. There are lots of open seats. Do you know where all of the rest of your classes are? Oh, yeah, look, okay. Wait, what do they have? Oh, okay. That class is right next door. But literally. Okay, so it's the other one? And this one is like severely long. It's in the 2000, but I don't even know what it is. I'm so sorry about that. In that direction. Okay. All right, sugar baby. Come on. I'm pushing the seat. Okay, so. This seat is open. This seat is open. That seat is open. That seat is open. The seat thing. Oh no. No, neither one of those seats are open. So come on, sugar. That seat is open. Sit wherever you please. Is this one open? Yes, it is. All right, I'll write you in now. Okay. All right, y'all. And so what's my next step? I said, what's my next step? Square root both sides. Thank you. Why y'all being rude? Y'all hear me talking to you. I see you, Trevor. All right. Take the square root, right? So now I have that x equals, remember, plus or minus whatever the square root of 90 is. Pick up your calculator. Let the calculator do the heavy lifting. What is that? 3 root 10 is it going to be? Okay. So this will be x equals plus or minus, or positive or negative, 3 root 10. However you want to look at it. Okay. So remember, again, on Delta Math, if you have to write your answers separately, all right, remember this is either positive 3 root 10 or negative 3 root 10. That's what that plus or minus means. Or, like in the previous problem, if we're adding or subtracting, okay, it'll either be 5 plus 2 root 2 or 5 minus 2 root 2 if they want you to write your answers separately. Does that make sense? Do you all understand the distinction? Okay, all right. All right. Do this problem on your own, quickly. Jordan, do you have something to write with and write on? All right. And you can just have this for the rest of the school day, and I'm going to give you a pen, okay? Let me see if I can. No. You're welcome. Here you go, sugar. So give me that paper back. You already wrote on it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Don't worry. All right, young people, this problem is too easy for you guys. What's my first step? Add 64 to both sides of the equal sign. So I end up with 2x squared equals 64. Now what's my next step? Divide both sides by 2. And I get that x squared equals 32. Now what do I do? Square root both sides. And I get that x equals positive or negative root 32. All right. Well, what is the square root of 32? What's going to be 4 root 2? Okay. Positive or negative, 4 root 2 is my answer. So when you type it into Delta Math, it'll either be positive 4 root 2 or negative 4 root 2. That's ugly. Okay. Questions or concerns? Okay. Any complaints? All right, Jordan, let me know when you're done, babe. Ashley, you good? All right. Just checking on you. You looking at why is she calling my name? If you feel like you're ready, go ahead and pull out your device and move on to Delta Math. All right, Jordan, you good? All right. Yeah, this is too easy, but I'll do it for good measure. All right, so we have x squared plus 45 equals 0. First step, subtract 45 from both sides. Oh, Jordan, I'm sorry, I didn't give you a calculator. Why did I write 49? Bless the teacher. My goodness. Okay. So you end up with x squared is equal to negative 45. And then naturally, we're going to take the square root of both sides. And that becomes x equals, if you have a negative symbol underneath your radical, you pull out that I, right? I root 45. Okay? Pick up your calculator, let it do the heavy lifting for you. It should be 3 root 5. I'm sorry, and I forgot the plus or minus. My bad. Bless the teacher. So when you simplify the square root of 45, your final answer is going to be x equals positive or negative 3i root 5. Okay? Questions or concerns? All right. All right, Jordan, do you have a device there? Do you have a phone? Okay, cool. Pull it out. Go to your Play Store and download something called Ed Puzzle. Ed Puzzle.